Our next discussion comes from the world of media, and it's so great to have this woman back with us. Linda has participated the past couple years, and every discussion is fascinating. And this year, we're pleased to have, as the interviewer, Stephanie Ruhle, who's from MSNBC and NBC News. So without further ado, please welcome Linda and Stephanie. Come on up.
Thank you so much for having us, Linda. Thank you for inviting me.
So happy that you're here with us.
I think there needs to be more women in this audience that would reflect the amount of women on this stage. I'm just...
We amped up the percentages.
We're obviously going to start with advertising and measurement. Last year, you were sitting on the stage and you were talking about the importance of measurement, because everyone wants to get their message out there, but it's the impact of it. So here we are a year later. You've continued to follow this theme. Where are we now?
So thank you for noticing that maybe measurement has been a recurring theme on something our industry needs to pay attention to. I think it really goes beyond just the importance of measurement. I think it is the acute need to improve measurement of where we are. But because of the lack of industry standards across, let's call it linear and digital, just talk about broadly right now, it's made it impossible for us to do what we're ultimately tasked with doing, which is deliver the best possible opportunities for marketers to get their messages out, especially in as fragmented a world that we live in with unlimited choice. That being said, since last year, I think the good news is there's progress being made. The conversations have now turned from frustration and inertia and lack of movement to what can we do, right?
So what can we do?
Well, it was one of the reasons that Nbcu hosted an State of the Industry forum at the end of 2017. And it was really designed to surface the issues that are paralyzing the industry across the ecosystem. So it was really designed to invite clients in terms of marketers themselves, agency, top brass, and actually competitors all in one room together to rip the Band-Aid off and say, let's get to it. Because what's happened is the world, or the ecosystem of the world of commercial transactions across the industry, has become an us versus them. And that's sad in any industry.
Who being us and who being...
linear versus digital. Is TV dead? Is it the duopoly? Is it Facebook versus NBCU? It shouldn't be any of that. Because what's stuck in the crosshairs of being, unfortunately, a victim of the inability to coalesce and come together is, first, the client, but ultimately, most importantly, the consumer. So we're not doing our best jobs, we're not being our best selves, and that forum was designed to be one thing, and that was a forcing mechanism to rip the Band-Aid off and say, we're giving everyone permission to change. And that's what I'm most excited about, because I think we're kind of at this lightning in a bottle point of time in our industry where, you know, the ability to get better is now, or the opportunity to get better is now a must. And that change is, quite frankly, especially from NBCU, is now expected. Just coming off the heels of CES, you know, a lot of the conversation started with, what do you got up your sleeve? Which I love those kind of questions. But that's what we were hoping we would get to, is just open the dialogue, unclog the drain.
Can traditional linear media innovate in terms of measurement? Because digital platforms will say, you might be bigger, but we're better. Can the traditional side of the house really start to move the needle, even though you've got a more antiquated framework?
Okay, well, it's a perfect question. It's one that I think historically has kept me up at night a little bit. So can we change Yes.
Because it's a cheap jab that digital platforms like to throw at you.
Well, well, thank you for saying that, and I'm relieved that someone else is saying it instead of me. But that's what has led to the us versus them, right? The television has always acted as this big, blunt instrument with just such a giant stage to communicate, and always has been relied on for that big messaging. The giant platform that's immediate reach, check the box, got it done. And over the last bunch of years, digital or the social platforms, however you want to refer to those companies or that side of the business, is that, but we can target, we could get more of who you're specifically looking for. We own this last click attribution. So the reality is, it's not one or the other. It's a improved media mix. But if you don't have that brand awareness work at the top of the funnel, the hard, heavy lifting that's done at the journey to purchase, that last click attribution isn't happening. So I think that's what a lot of companies, unfortunately, fell victim to, and why, over the last 12 to 18 months, there's been a rush or a wave back to what's really tried and true, or what's been talked about as having much more impact on the bottom of the funnel than what was originally thought. But to really answer your question, to get better at measurement, unfortunately, there's not one perfect tool. I think part of that permission and what's going to happen is that it's got to be more than one tool or more than one source, but companies like Nbcu are getting a lot better at creating our own tools and methods to prove performance that we're able to actually communicate a business outcome or a more specific consumer segment beyond age and gender, and that's what we're most excited about.
Well, let's talk about the good part of the big, blunt instrument, the big part. Because in the next 6 months, you've got the Super Bowl, you've got the Olympics, and you got the World Cup. If that isn't the trifecta of grand amazingness, I don't know what is. So
I
walk us
ask
through.
forgiveness for any of the marketing clients who are in the room where the Nbcu teams have been basically members of your offices for the last 9 months to a year, getting ready for what we're excited to be. Just specifically, you know, we have the Super Bowl, right, in a couple of weeks, actually. And then 4 days later is the first event that kicks off the Olympics. That'll be happening in Pyeongchang. And how exciting is it that the Koreans are coming marching in together, North and South, that the women's hockey team is going to be skating together, and that there are figure skating athletes from North Korea participating. So we could not be happier and more excited that the Olympics are proving to be what we've always known them to be, which is, outside of any macro political conditions, it's bringing the world together through the competition of sport. So we're so excited about that. That being said, the trifecta of sports, thrilled, and first of all, we have to go on record, like I have to go on record, that kudos to Brian Roberts and Steve Burke, my bosses, that had the foresight to invest long-term, not only in the NFL, we have a long-term relationship with them, in addition to investing in the Olympics until 2032. We joke around the office that most athletes that'll be competing then are either not been born yet or babies and toddlers, so that's an interesting thing to think about. And also Telemundo, very exciting, World Cup for the first time, and we have a long-term deal until after 2022. So that's amazing, because sports, as much as there are overall ratings concerns, whether they're accurate or not, happen to be the single most dominant programming method to distribute to as many people at once. And we want to have as many of those events or big moments annually, which we, at least right now, capture most of those to be able to deliver a great set of consumers to our marketers. So very grateful to be in that position.
Given that sport does sort of change the world, sport brings us together globally. Given what an angry time we're living in, and even though the news business is doing well, this is a divisive, no one's giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. There is not a heart or mind open. Everyone is in their corners moment. How great is it from a marketing perspective? The optimism, the joy, the unification that sport creates. How good is that for your side of the business?
Look, I think the answer to your question purely sits in your question itself. So what's been exciting, particularly for the Super Bowl and the Olympics, is the opportunity to create and launch messages that marketers that are bringing to the world at once, because it really is a world stage. So the custom creative that is being showcased inside the Super Bowl and inside the Olympics, I think you're going to see a lot of messages of hope, a lot of messages that are uplifting, and a lot of messages that reflect the content that they're in and respectful to the stage and the size of that stage that they're on. When, you know, the entire culture or our country comes together all day on that one specific Sunday, and happy that NBC is able to broadcast it this year, and then 4 days later have multiple weeks, right, of the opportunity to continue those messaging. Imagine the span of time of opportunity that we're able to give marketers to come to NBCU and just expand the life cycle of their messages that could have been just a one-off opportunity during the Super Bowl, but to really be creative and have a common thread that goes through to spread their messages louder has been one of the most unique experiences, exhausting, but unique experiences that I certainly have ever had in partnering with our clients.
A good kind of exhausting.
A good kind, because what's really exciting this year is you'll see a lot of social interaction, live iteration during the Super Bowl itself, and then that will continue during the Olympics, but obviously activating all of our technology relationships and tools that we've developed to be able to make it a real immersive, robust, in-the-moment experience along with our advertisers while we have this giant megaphone.
I want to ask you about something that I worry about personally. I have 3 young kids at home, and we talk a lot about in the news. So we know what our kids watch on linear platforms. And if they're watching Sprout all day, we could worry about the amount of screen time, but we don't worry about the content.
Right.
But kids, everyone are using digital platforms. And as many parameters as we put on those digital platforms, there's content out there that parents aren't comfortable with. This isn't just an issue for consumers, it's a huge issue for advertisers, because you've got advertising running straight up against content that isn't necessarily NBCU approved. How much of an issue is this?
Look, for a marketer this year, based on what's happened, let's even just call it in the last 24 months, I would be surprised if it wasn't the number 1 or number 2 issue that they're worried about. As a matter of fact, I think a couple of weeks ago, Mark Pritchard at Procter declared this year the year of brand safety. I think it's a complicated issue to solve, particularly complicated in digital, to use the broad term. You know, it's an issue which, quite frankly, doesn't exist in television. And the reason it doesn't exist in television is that you're able to proactively pick, choose, and invest in the programs you want to have your messages connected to in advance. So it will make, I believe, pretty bullish on this, that it's even going to be one of the big conversations in this upcoming upfront market, which is brand safety and protection. It is virtually something you don't have to think about in television. So think about it this way, and I try to explain this a lot to folks who try to understand the complication of it.
It's a risk management issue.
And bear with me, don't have a bad reaction, but in terms of when marketers come to invest with us, in television, time exists, right? It's opportunity is limited, it's perishable, but you're actually talking about specific spots in a pod on a certain day at a certain time. And if you don't react or you don't schedule in advance, that time goes away. It's why the upfront is so important. It's why scatter is what it is. You kind of get what you get. That being said, in digital, time doesn't exist in terms of you don't know where and when your spot is going to run against what content. Now, are there capabilities to secure that point in time? Is it within your flight? Can you pick and choose better the sites you choose to support? Yes. Is it something that you don't have to worry about ever? We're not there yet. And by the way, this is not, again, a TV versus digital thing. We have a ton of digital businesses at NBCU that we either own and operate or we have partnerships.
But your digital businesses are regulated.
We have very specific guidelines in what we do with our own digital businesses, and our partnerships really are fueled by a lot of safe content, premium content, if I'll call it. Vox Media with our concert tool, it's all based around premium content. Apple News. So we have an amazing spectrum of partnerships that we're able to engage in conversations with our clients, and more those conversations include everything from our TV platforms or owned and operated assets, which will give you on any given day 20 to 25% of the available audience you're trying to reach, and then simultaneously it includes all of our digital partners or companies that we have invested with our Beacon strategy.
Again, those digital partners are premium partners. So while advertisers or big brands are now saying this is the year of brand safety, they're making that statement. Are they moving their dollars yet? Because in the last, let's say, 2 or 3 years, this idea of native content and startups was very sexy and exciting, and only in the last year are these brands, even in the last week with YouTube, some of these brands learning the pitfalls.
Well, I think a lot of folks fell victim to the shiny new toy kind of, oh my God, that looks so great and I don't want to miss out. I also think, with all due respect to my partner here, the press narrative doesn't help. Who's watching television? Well, guess what? The lion's share of content, no matter what it's activated or what kind of distribution mechanism it's activated on, is still consumed on a TV screen. That TV screen may have a variety of sizes to it, and I've said this a lot, that my 5-year-old nephew calls his telephone or his parents' telephone his little TV. So I think that's what we have to, instead of having an idea conjured up in our heads of what a TV is, which is an old wooden piece of furniture plugged into a wall in a living room, it's not that. I can guarantee you that. That being said, I think a lot of clients fell victim to the shiny new toy strategy. So what we already covered was the math of it all not working out, right? So the product wasn't selling. The person wasn't walking into the showroom en masse, right? Because you got to have that top of the funnel awareness, the heavy lifting at the middle of the purchase journey. I could go on and on. So that wasn't working. And then what was revealed through a variety of unfortunate exposure was that it was being irresponsibly placed next to content that would never happen. So is the money coming back? I think the money started coming back well over a year ago. And the real frustrating challenge is that there's more demand than supply on the TV side. So those fixed spots I was talking about, whether it's the Golden Globes or it is Mr. Robot or This Is Us, there's more demand than supply to go around, which leads me back to the beginning of our therapy session, which is the inferior measurement stick that we have going on right now that we got to get better at. So I hope everyone's getting this progress, because I believe that things are being surfaced and it's okay to talk about it. And companies certainly like NBCU are extremely well positioned to have that kind of conversation with an advertiser very holistically about what they're trying to achieve.
Luckily, we have great content they can come to. You said something in November at your industry forum that had a lot of people saying, what? And you specifically talked about
I've lost track of what I say, so what did it?
Reducing the amount of commercial time.
Yeah.
Which is not something we would ever think we would hear from someone in your position. So please elaborate on it.
Okay, I will elaborate on it because I have gotten a lot of feedback
I only
from
read it and went,
or,
what?
or even including my boss said, oh, wait a minute, what are you doing? So I think what's important to note, and I'm surprised that other people in my position aren't talking about it, and it's really about one thing. The consumer experience in live linear television needs to improve. Okay? And it has many, many tentacles of impact. When you have an average, I'm gonna be generous here to try to include the whole TV ecosystem or live linear ecosystem. You have an average of 10 to 15 minutes of commercial time per hour that a consumer is required to watch. I don't think the outcomes of ratings or consumer behavior change are disconnected from that. Who wants to sign up for that? And in digital, every technology or product that's being launched actually liberates the consumers from potentially watching any ads at all. So what the heck are we doing? So really what the focus is on at NBCU is to improve those experiences in two ways. Number one, if you look at the entire NBCU portfolio, we have a lot of hours, right? A lot of hours. If you could easily relate it to money, it's worth about $10 billion a year to our company. But if you look at it in prime time, which delivers about 70% of our viewing on average, right? That experience has to improve. So I would expect, if I were any of you in this audience, that there will be a material improvement of that viewer experience across NBCU. And that will come in a couple of ways. Number one, a reduction in commercial time. Stay tuned for how much we're working on it. But also an improvement, connected to one of your earlier questions, is making television smarter and more relevant to you. Because a lot of times you're served ads in a live linear environment that have no interest to you whatsoever. But you'll see a lot of capabilities and new, very exciting tools across our whole portfolio that makes the messages you're gonna see in the contextual environments of the shows you wanna watch, think This Is Us, and they're gonna be specific to what your...
So all the commercials will just be Kleenex because you're just crying the entire show?
We're trying to get some either email or home addresses, which in a privacy compliant world, we do supply Kleenex or tissues. But I will tell you, stay tuned for the This Is Us episode after the Super Bowl. It will be one of a lifetime to talk about. That's important. But really a lot of opportunity from an ad product standpoint to give the marketer truly new and unique opportunities to specify their message in the context of a show and a commercial pod that has never been available before.
So that's the argument that digital platforms have made. The digital platforms have made the argument, I'm gonna give you the most directed, impactful consumer, we're gonna find them, but what the digital platforms don't have is the premium content. You've got the premium content. We just came home from CES. That's where the technology lies.
Yep.
The big theme there when we left was artificial intelligence. Do you see artificial intelligence playing a role in your future?
Well, I think it's already playing a role, which is really exciting. And while we may be in the early days, I think the TV companies, or a company like NBCU, is really very well poised to take advantage of it. So it's also in two ways. And I have to preface it all. I don't think any type of AI or machine learning could have predicted the incredible ability for a new show like This Is Us to literally capture conversation of the country. We didn't know we needed a show like that. Okay?
We didn't know we needed the Kardashians.
Yeah, well, And we continue. We will always need the Kardashians. Let
But
me
we
be
didn't
real.
know
We
beforehand.
haven't even begun to talk about the new baby that was born the other day, and we got a couple more coming. So anyway, that being said, I know I have a lot of Kardashian knowledge. The important thing, I think, or who would have thought that a 43-year-old show continues to capture social conversation and impact what we talk about every day, like Saturday Night Live.
43 years old?
43rd season.
Would anyone have guessed it's 43 years old?
And it's unbelievable in the fact that everyone thought it was, obviously fueled by the election cycle last year, but it's staying at those epic and historic levels. So that's one we added a little bit of science to the artful mix, and that's what we're excited about to your question of AI. We reduced the commercial load last year with SNL, like, don't tinker with something that's literally perfect. Well, we wanted to see what would happen and improve the viewer experience. So what we're able to do with a lot of our new data tools, that is to iterate or learn in real time what makes more sense to develop from an ad product, or what makes more sense to deliver something that's more contextually relevant to the consumer at that point in time. On the art side of it, and the impact of potentially what could be machine learning, is more about, I would have to say, the continual or ability to move faster. Like, I joke around with a lot of my either BuzzFeed partners or Vox Media partners. They labor over content that takes them more than a working day to get out. I'm like, This Is Us was in development for a year, and you guys are stressing out over pumping out content in a day. That's the world you live in, a constant cycle. So I'm happy to say that that kind of learning and impact, whether it's script development, audience development, anything like that, is helping us get faster. So I love the idea, and we're just all in this area in terms of financial investment, of bringing together the art and the science of it all to get quicker, better, smarter for our audiences. And then the ultimate benefactor can be the advertiser.
Then whether you're talking about partnerships or new shows with Snapchat, partnerships with a Vox, a BuzzFeed, World Cup, Olympics, Super Bowl, This Is Us, 70 years of Meet the Press, 43 years of SNL, NBCU is clearly firing on all fronts. Linda, thank you so much.
Thank you.